Hi everyone, it's Sarah Egan. Today I wanted to talk to you about the book I read for the class. It was called Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead by Sheryl Sandberg in 2013. When I was talking to my coworker about this assignment, he said his wife has a lot of leadership type books, so the next day he brought in a bunch for me, and this is the one I was the most interested in. Obviously, as a woman trying to climb the ladder, I guess the higher education ladder in this point, I thought it kind of interests me to kind of see. Obviously, she's from a completely different world. She's from the tech world, so there's obviously some barriers that she experienced that maybe I wouldn't experience in my career. I was thinking. Overall, I liked the book, but it was a little difficult to put myself into her shoes. I think within higher education, you don't see as much of this barrier for women entering as you would in the tech world. So far in my career, both of my superiors have been women, so it's definitely within the education realm. I do think that there are more opportunities for women, and there have been for several years now. So that's very good. But there are still some sort of difficult conversations that almost any woman would have difficulty having. Thinking about just that sort of even the internal conversation you have with yourself about wanting to have a baby and how to balance everything. She comes right out, and she's a woman that's obviously very successful. As I said, CEO of Facebook, married, has 2 kids, and she says she absolutely hates the statement of how does she do it all, because she said at the end of the day she does struggle with doing everything, but she's obviously very motivated and has all her ducks in a row as you need to be in such a high corporate position, I would imagine. So like I said, overall I like the book. She was really good about introducing research into gender studies. One notable study that I wanted to sort of talk to you guys about was this Heidi versus Howard study. There was a bunch of participants were brought in and given sort of a readout of 2 different, it was the same description, but they changed the name, Heidi and Howard, sort of their climb in a company to the very tip top. Overall, when they asked the participants to rate respect, they respected them the same, which was good. But when they talked about things like likability, would you want this person to be your boss? How do you feel about this person? The participants across the board wanted Howard to be their boss, wanted Howard to be the person they worked with. So there's a general sense of, she called it sort of this inverse relationship. As you become more successful as a woman, the likability actually goes down. So it's just something to consider. And I personally, I think I've been at fault of this as well. So it's something I have to kind of look at inward myself as well. So going forward, I'm hopefully can stop these thoughts that pop up that aren't really our fault. It's kind of ingrained in us as we are socialized and into our society. So little things like that I've learned after reading this book that they're really helpful. Some other things she talked about that I thought were great and would help me personally, and I think other women as well, are just sort of how to navigate these more difficult conversations, sort of knowing that this likability factor is definitely something that exists. It's something we can't really ignore. Obviously, we would love to say that it would go away someday, but this is the environment and the context we live in. So sort of difficult conversations would be negotiating a higher salary when you're entering a job. That's something that's really difficult for me, that I struggled with my current position. I was offered the lowest amount and I took it, and now I sort of have that regret that I didn't stand up for myself as someone who had a master's degree coming in with a little bit of experience. So she said, instead of focusing on yourself, which is something that people typically are turned off by when with women sort of negotiating these sort of contracts, is to think about the interpersonal relationship, what you can bring to the organization. So again, trying to just take the focus off of yourself, even though you do want to promote yourself, but it could potentially make you less likable. So just thinking about that when you have these difficult conversations. So the one thing I didn't really like about the book, and I kind of touched on this, was just the difficulty of seeing myself in her shoes. She's obviously a very successful woman. She went to Harvard. Her father's a doctor. Her siblings are doctors. So they're all very successful. All come from, for to say there's some money involved. So it's hard to see myself as someone, that work in Washington, D.C. under I think congressmen and congresswomen, and then to have all these opportunities that might not have been available to me as someone from a lower SES. So it was difficult to put myself into her shoes 100%, but I think I learned quite a bit from reading the book, and I just realized I am over my 5-minute mark. But again, yeah, generally like the book, and I'll write a lot more in my paper. About sort of how I can utilize what she taught me into my own trajectory as a potential leader. All right, bye everyone.